If you think there is linear time, the past will affect you, but the past doesn't really exist. For example, age is nonsense. 2 planets defining your age is a huge nonsense. The problem is when you believe you have to age and thus manifest aging. That's the problem. There is so much nonsense programmed in your mind, and that's how you manifest the programmed nonsense. You should instead start erasing the programming and think about surrendering yourself as a consciousness, or you can call it a soul or whatever. It knows what's best for you. Your consciousness knows the past is an illusion and a video game. But your mind believes the past is real, and that's why it affects you. You believe that video game is real, and that's why you suffer. Your consciousness knows it's just an old game, there's no problem. But when you say, no, that's real, that's mine, and it's my, then you're lost. Because the ego, which is an illusion, believes that the illusion is real, and that's where suffering comes in. Is that clear? That's why you must stop thinking, wanting, and believing in something. It's best to believe in nothing. Why do you want to work, for example? Why do you work? You work to generate money so you can be a consumer slave. Because you believe you need things. Because someone instilled in you the idea that you need something. So they've instilled in you the idea that your nutrition exists so you can continue consuming and remain a consumer slave. The problem is that you cannot become conscious. Consciousness is already conscious. The one who wants to become conscious is the ego. The ego cannot become conscious because the ego is an illusion. You must learn to do nothing so that consciousness can direct you to what you have to do. For example, I am with you now. But I didn't desire or plan it. Then consciousness manifests that. Consciousness manifests situations in this life on its own, so the ego doesn't have to get involved. But you get involved in life. That's the problem when you try to control every step of your life, and that's where you're in trouble. I'm preparing humanity for its exit. Because where people are living, there's no way out. Because what people are living is useless. But the preparation is for you to dissolve the ego character and desire less. Desire less food and desire less from life. You have to trust. However, for the moment, people don't trust because they want control. How will anything change if people have control? Worrying is taking care of something in advance, and that's foolish because you don't trust. The point then is, why not trust? You don't trust because you were programmed through society not to trust anyone. This is how fear is instilled in your mind. You end up manifesting a fear programming. Fear is an illusion. Fear doesn't exist. Fear is a programming. But fear manifests in you because you believe it's real. That's why it's good to observe what's happening. Why are you afraid? A classic fear is the fear of the dark. Where does the fear of the dark come from? A child isn't afraid of the dark until the mother comes and tells the child to be careful of the dark, and the parents instill nonsense, and then the child begins to believe whatever other fear they have. You aren't born with fear. Fear is an external programming that others tell you. You end up believing that nonsense. The point is that you have to understand first that everything you've been told is more than a lie. It's nonsense that serves no purpose. It's hard, but it's true. So, if all of you carry trauma, you're traumatized, and that trauma is truly a lie. The biggest lie is the idea of abandonment. For example, if you believe you were abandoned by a little brother because he receives the most attention, or whatever the circumstance, then you seek attention in your life. You seek love. Why do you seek love? Because you were raised by two love beggars, your parents. Your parents seek love, and they teach you to seek love. The most important thing to understand is that the ego character cannot love, because the ego is a robot. The ego is programming. So, through the ego, you apply the programming you learned. So what you learned? That love you learned is conditional love with your partner. If you don't give love freely to your partner, you expect something from your partner. Everything is conditional. So the ego cannot love. This means that while I am a beggar for love, how can I give something I'm seeking? It would be ridiculous. You can't love while executing the programming you learned like a robot does. Love is something within you and manifests when you release desires. But while you take on a role, be it a mother, father, or whatever the role may be, then you act by giving love. but that isn't giving love since it is conditional on expecting something. If, for example, I only give love to my partner or children and don't give love to anyone else, that isn't pure love. Only consciousness is love. The moment you let go of your ego persona, you give up interest in your entire life. That's when you manifest love. I can be with you when you don't matter to me. If I have interest in you, where is the love? When you don't care about the other, you love them. If you care about your children, you don't love them because they are already under conditions. The ego is a construction of two sleeping beings, father and mother, who form another sleeping being, child. When a baby is born, it is corrupted, and the ego is born. I am looking for a way to live in community. Within the community, people have to purify the ego, and from there, children can be born. Right now, all children who are born are traumatized because their parents are already traumatized, so they inherit trauma. You can see in yourselves that you are traumatized through your parents. So you have to understand that my suffering is really a false idea of my parents. The suffering is not mine. But the problem is that when I seek love, I am faithful to my parents. I am faithful because they taught me to seek love, so I am faithful to them, doing the same stupid things even though I am unhappy, being a beggar for love. So I have to observe why I am seeking love. What a huge foolishness. So one ends up looking for love in a partner, in food, at work. And why would one look for love outside? The reason is that one looks for love outside because that's what one learns. We are programmed to look for love. So people would have to break out of that programming, free themselves from the programming. Spirituality and religion are another way of looking for love. They are all stories. If I desire something, then I am tied down, my freedom is compromised. But how do you form that bond? The dependence of looking for love in relationships and everywhere because one thinks I lack it. Based on a life of how I was told I should live, based on being told that you have to want it, you have to behave this way, then you live a life that is not yours. And living a life that is not yours not only causes anxiety but also a tense situation. So we have to understand this. You can dissolve all your traumas immediately when you are true to yourself. Being true to yourself is not the same as being true to your parents and repeating their same traumas. Being true to yourself on the inside is important, but you don't know it. Being true to yourself causes guilt because you think you have to stop being true to your parents, which is what you thought was right your whole life. But it's important to be true to yourself. Only when I'm true to myself can I free myself from programming. Being true to yourself is something you feel. For example, many of you don't want to work. If you feel obligated to do what you do, it causes anxiety. And if I have anxiety, I need a drug. Life is really very easy when you're true to yourself, because you follow the rhythm of your life. But when you're tied to what you think you have to be true to, those parents are two asleep parents. And if the chain continues, there will be no freedom for humanity. That chain has to be broken. Two asleep parents shouldn't procreate. I would tell you one thing. The process is the laziness of the ego. Let it all go. But no, you're not willing to let go. If you start saying, I want my pillow and my this and that, then we're accustomed to a certain comfort zone. But that doesn't even make you happy. Because if you were happy, you wouldn't be listening to this now. The ego can't be happy because it's conditioned and programmed with nonsense and things it doesn't want to do. You have to free yourself from that very easily. For example, you have all the comforts, but you're unhappy. If you prefer comfort even if you're unhappy, something doesn't make sense. Everyone is addicted. Because the system needs an addict. That's how they can control a person. But a person who is free of emotions and free of addictions is a danger to the system. You are controlled through emotions and fears. You could see the vaccine show, where the system influences with a little bit of fear and people line up for a needle. It's a huge nonsense, but people believe all the nonsense. That's how you can see how easy it is to manipulate. If you know the system, you'll see that it's very easy to manipulate people in any way. You can't free yourself while you are the jailer of your soul. The only way to free yourself is to stop playing that role. So it's good to stop thinking and desiring. Personally, it took me a long time to understand all this I'm telling you. I went around in circles a lot, and it took me a lot of time and shocks. I'm offering you a shortcut right now with what I'm explaining to you. But if you want to go around in circles and suffer a little more in your life, that's your decision. Because you can't be happy living a false life, living a life that isn't yours and clinging to false beliefs. To be true to yourself, you have to learn to say no. If you feel that's not your path, don't follow it. Being true to yourself is letting go of everything. The more you understand, the more easily you let go of everything. In my personal experiences, it was much more difficult to understand and come to terms with what's happening. The moment everything became clear to me, I said I don't like being a slave and I don't want to continue being a slave. The word sentiment comes from feeling the lie. You feel something that you believe is real. That's the problem. It's the feeling. Instead of observing what I'm feeling, just as one observes when one feels hot or cold, the key is not to get involved in what one is feeling. But you cling to what you're feeling, and that absorbs you, and you lose yourself in the lie. So it's good to be more observant. You can observe things and let things pass, like in a movie. Observe like a movie. Observe without getting involved like the protagonist or getting caught up in the drama. You can watch the soap opera of your life and laugh at it. There are people who suffer when they watch their soap opera because they think it's real. It's good to understand that it's just a soap opera. There's a nice saying, the feet know the way, the feet know where to walk, so just trust. But if you want to control, it's because you don't trust. The conscience that you are knows what's best for you. For example, going to an election to vote is a waste of time. Why are you going to vote? But the most important thing is not to watch TV, not to watch nonsense on your cell phone, because that's when the programming comes in. So if you want to be a little more free yourself from your cell phone too. I was happy while I was in the forest without a phone. Books are a distraction too. On the other hand, I was happy reading about the jungle, about monkeys. I prefer reading that to a book. I don't need to be distracted. When you read a book, for example, you're looking for a distraction. And why do you want to be distracted? You only want to be distracted if you're anxious. What are you looking for when you're anxious? You shouldn't have to look for anything, when in reality you should trust and do nothing at all. Doing nothing is the hardest part. But why do you want to do anything? Here we're just in a video game of illusion. Only the player can play something. The player is the consciousness, while the ego character illusion can't play. If you're playing, you should be conscious. But if you're programmed, you can't be conscious. When someone is programmed, the system already knows how that person reacts. Likewise, being a robot means what you're doing is useless. The shortcut is to do nothing. You're so robotic about doing things. But doing them distracts you and locks away your soul. You fulfill a function. Your function is to lock away who you are. While you search for meaning in life, you're lost. I haven't sought to be talking to you now. It's a selfless act. Consciousness can only act when you don't want anything. Desire comes from the ego. Then consciousness only manifests when there is no ego. It manifests itself, but for that you need trust. The moment you want control, free consciousness is blocked. It's good for each person to deeply understand why one lives in anxiety. The answer is that one lives in anxiety because one lives doing things one doesn't want to do. If I don't like the job I do, why do I continue doing it? If my parents bother me, why do you continue living with your parents? If you're not happy with your partner, why do you stay in that relationship? You have to feel it. The meaning of life is to serve humanity. The rest is meaningless. Accumulating money is meaningless. What does a bank account mean? That means greed. What does greed mean? That generates poverty. Because you're always going to want more. The money you need comes naturally. So I'm not chasing money. I don't go and offer myself as a slave. I handle money like I handle a hammer. And if I only have one nail, why would I have 100 hammers? If you enter into trust, your conscience knows the best future. Conscience will provide you with everything you need, but it won't provide you with everything you want. That wanting is the problem. To want things, you need to be a slave. The question is whether I believe what I've been told or whether I enter into complete trust. If I enter into complete trust, I will get everything I need. How you shouldn't care. If you care, it's like you want control, and the one who wants control is something you're not. That's when you're going to suffer. People become slaves to their activities. But if they enter into trust, and when one enters into trust, everything you need comes to you, and it comes at the time you need it, not in the future. Why do you worry about the future? Worry is not trusting. The ego never trusts because it's programmed to control, so your being knows the future. Your consciousness knows what's best for you, where it is, and what to do. Only consciousness knows what to do. Your ego is with other people's ideas. Freedom can only exist when you have freed yourself from 3 points: food, love, and money. When you pursue any of these points, it causes an absence of peace. You will never be at peace while pursuing these points. This is perfect for the system because then you will be craving nonsense, so you have to free yourself from all that. The first point is food. If I depend on food, the provider of food is my owner. Food is a drug and nothing more because your body doesn't need food. You are a manifestation of your consciousness. So life here is consciousness, not food. The second is love. Observing at what level of degree you are begging for love, with your partner or wherever. In what situations am I offering to give love? If I give love to my partner and to the same degree I give love to others, then I am in harmony. But if I distinguish between one person and another, my love is not love. Begging for love means that one doesn't recognize the love that one already is. How did you come to the idea that you lack love? You have to reflect on how you got to such an absurd point of incorporating things that others have told me. Because through what others have told me, one stops reacting. That means one is totally programmed. On the other hand, if one understands that it is pure love, then I will distribute my love and happily hug everyone without expecting anything. But if I wait for someone else to hug me, then one is lost in one's own story. The third is money. Money is only a tool. But if I depend on money, then the owner of the money is my owner too. Do you understand? People must be free of all these points. Food is just a stimulation. For example, have you seen an alcoholic? Have you seen an alcoholic eat? He doesn't eat because he already has his drug and doesn't want to eat. Are you going to tell me that his body lives off of alcohol? How can an alcoholic sustain itself on alcohol? That's pure stimulation. So if you have your stimulation from food, others have the stimulation from alcohol, and others from tobacco. Everyone has their stimulation, but with stimulation you'll never be at peace and you'll always need a drug. You're going to have to free yourself from seeking love, from seeking money, and from seeking food. Once you can free yourself from everything else, everything you need will come. For example, I was in the jungle and bananas fell in abundance. Life is abundant. But if you want your meat, then you have to be a slave. The universe will provide everything you need, not always what you want if you have trust. You're already accustomed to addiction. Perception is based on the fairy tale of nutrition. That's just a story and nothing more. Just reflect. If nutrition exists, then why do you go to the bathroom? You'll end up defecating everything you've eaten. Nothing remains in you. Nutrition doesn't exist. You can't assimilate something you're not made of. If you're not made of pork or carrots, the same thing you put in your body will come out. You don't need to study medicine to understand that. If you assimilate what you're eating, then why go to the bathroom? Nutrition doesn't exist. The best thing to do is observe children. What do children do with food? Children play and explore. So food is for exploration, not for you to be addicted and gluttonous. The digestive process is for exploration and detoxification. Because also if you breathe in any particle or anything that is toxic to your body, then a system to eliminate that toxicity is necessary. It's that simple. Ultimately, medicine will tell you many things, but in my more primitive observation, there is no such thing as nutrition. Nutrition is a myth. You can observe it in yourself. If you eat a carrot, you should become a carrot. But on the contrary, you don't assimilate anything. There is zero assimilation. To understand it more easily, as an addict, that's a stimulant, and nutrition doesn't exist. There is only stimulation, and you've grown accustomed to stimulation. That's all there is to it, and it's nothing else. What's happening when you feel withdrawal symptoms, which you describe as hunger? Hunger is withdrawal symptoms. To give you a more or less understanding of how life works, it's based on an adaptation curve to food. Every time you go beyond intoxication, illness comes. This means that children are constantly coughing up mucus, so the child knows that what the mother is giving them is nonsense. Then you notice the children getting sick every time. They need time to adapt to the toxin food. No one is born with the ability to eat. You have to adapt to be an addict as you are now and for your body to accept it. It's just a matter of observing that this isn't natural. Everyone has experienced it, but the mother still pushes you to swallow more food even if the child is vomiting. So the body ends up adapting little by little to the toxin. For example, it's the same as adapting little by little to tobacco or alcohol, or adapting little by little to any drug. You can see that the illness begins when you are over-intoxicated. The body begins to detoxify, and the addiction, for example, makes you hungry, so you end up dancing between detoxification and intoxication. All the time between detoxification and intoxication. But when you feel like your body is detoxing, you don't like feeling that detox, whether it's from tobacco, food, or any drug. The withdrawal symptoms are simply what you feel when you're detoxing, so you need a period of adaptation. With intermittent fasting, you gradually adapt your body to less intoxication. The difference with animals is that they play a role in balancing the situation we're living in. You need someone to consume food to create balance in nature. You can see, for example, that dog waste is eaten by chickens, and so chicken waste is consumed by fish, and so on. Everything that goes in comes out, and nothing is assimilated. There's no nutrition. Nature is in constant balance in this way. Nature is in balance through the consumption of animals. We have free will. At least our consciousness has free will. Because a person loses free will when they have ideas about programming they have to execute. The ability to choose whether to eat chicken or pork today isn't free will. Free will means that you can reach a higher consciousness with your consciousness. With a higher consciousness, you can overcome this video game and stop being enslaved. An animal is fixed in its programming. It can't escape because it lacks free will. The animal has a different consciousness, but our consciousness allows us to escape from the programming. But it can only be escaped with pure consciousness, not with egoic consciousness. No, liberation doesn't work with the ego, only with your awareness of who you truly are. It's good to understand what illness and hunger are. Hunger is only withdrawal symptoms and nothing more. Whether a person is fat or thin isn't based on what they consume. Rather, someone is fat or thin based on what each person thinks food represents to them. There are obese people who consume very little food and suffer from obesity, while there are thin people who consume large amounts of food and have difficulty gaining weight. So you can see that it's not about the amount of food you eat, but rather whether you think food makes you fat, that's going to affect you. The belief you have is what's going to impact you. There are people who starve to death because they think they have to die. If you do a 6-day fast and feel weak, that means you're sick. You're intoxicated. You just have to let your body detoxify. For the body to detoxify, you have to cleanse it for at least a month. If you were intoxicated since you were a baby, then you can't detoxify in 2 or 3 days. That toxin has accumulated over a long period of time, and it takes time to detoxify. There are 2 parts to intoxication. One is physical intoxication, and the other is emotional intoxication. That means the anger one generates will also intoxicate the body. For example, cancer doesn't come from the substances in food. Rather, the cancellation comes from the hatred you have for yourself, and you kill yourself through the hatred you have. It's important to understand that purifying the body takes more time. Intermittent fasting works gradually. It's best to reduce food gradually and consume less each time. This way you can maintain that state of reduced consumption over time. It's better than doing sudden fasts and returning to the previous state again. If your willpower is low, it means you're very emotionally attached, and you'll easily fall into external traps. Natural plant-based medicine can help detoxify, but in the end, you're still trapped between intoxication and detoxification. It's best not to depend on anything. The system doesn't want you to understand this because then you can free yourself from the system. The system needs you as a consuming slave. Because when you're a consuming slave, you're obedient and do stupid things. We have to start over to free ourselves. People are very corrupted when it comes to food. You can live off what's in nature. It's not that you're going to start hunting in nature. Rather, you can live off what's there since what nature offers you is sufficient. You must understand that what you need will come. Today, you can see that indigenous people are corrupted by giving them rice and things to create dependency. They begin to adapt to things that weren't part of their diet. They have injected into you false needs so that you become addicted. Only addicts can be controlled, so one day the system can say there is the cue and the needle is waiting. People follow the manipulation in this way. I'm going to explain something to you to better understand the adaptation curve to food. Intoxication is largely centered on personal lies. For example, I'm abandoned, I'm not loved, I'm useless, and all that nonsense so you believe it, but in the end, it's a lie. For example, in one of the retreats, there was a participant who thought she was rejected by her father because her father wanted a son, and when she was born a woman, she began to reject herself as a woman. She felt useless as a woman, and so she unconsciously began to kill her feminine parts. This is how your mind works. The mental part is the largest part of you. You believe a personal lie from your childhood. This way, if you make a dietary change and reduce the intoxication, you'll obviously feel better, but the change is short-term if you don't get to the root cause of the intoxication. As we see in older people, your body won't be able to resist the toxin forever. If you go on a diet or change your environment, this will help in the short term. But to eliminate the poisoning in the long term, you must get to the root cause of the poisoning. For example, the reason you're living unhappily has a cause. So if you don't change that, you'll always turn to a distraction or a drug. It's important to get to the root cause of the poisoning. You don't need to take a drug. Everything you need is within you. You just need to activate it. There are things to consume that are less toxic than others. Medicine must truly recognize that it's useless and that nutrition doesn't exist. This has been known for hundreds of years, but medicine is so corrupted that they keep the population as consumer slaves. The moment you free yourself, they can no longer control you. They can only control an addict. Children, for example, don't want to eat. How many times have mothers forced their children to eat? But the children already know they shouldn't eat, and the mother forces them to eat. We can see that your body transforms the body's melatonin into DMT. DMT is the basis of ayahuasca. Your body produces it naturally, so you don't need anything from the outside. Why depend on ayahuasca? You're weak and exposed if you do ayahuasca, and if you don't do it with the right people, it can cause more mental disorders. Everything you need is inside you. The moment you eat, your body produces antibodies. Your body produces antibodies because without them, you would die from the toxins in the food. Then your body generates antibodies to survive. But those antibodies eliminate melatonin. This means that the more you eat, the more confused your mind becomes. On the other hand, when you fast, melatonin increases and then you have greater mental clarity. You can see that during puberty, when a person is in adolescence around the age of 15, melatonin production decreases the most because food consumption is greater. For example, a baby is pure consciousness and doesn't need drugs to be conscious. Through the growth of the ego, the body begins to generate melatonin. We have lucidity within us, but we cover it up with food and other things. We're talking about consciousness. Compared to animals, animals have a level of consciousness. Animals need it to reach a natural balance. This is different from humans who are not in a different state of consciousness. Mothers don't necessarily have to breastfeed their babies. Baby animals adapt to breastfeeding because it's part of the natural balance. In humans, it's not necessary. The mother's milk comes out if the mother wants to give milk. If the mother doesn't want to give milk, she won't produce milk for the baby. There are also men who produce milk because they are programmed to do so. What you think manifests itself. For example, if you are a mother who refuses to breastfeed, you will stop producing milk. It's the mind that controls it. It's an idea that they have to produce milk. The baby won't get sick from not drinking milk. The child ends up being forced to do silly things, to eat this or that thing, or to dress a certain way. The child ends up following orders about things they must do, which traumatizes the child. Babies don't need to drink milk. They vomit more than half of the milk they drink, and then they get diarrhea. What happens is that they are forcing the baby to consume more than the baby wants. Another problem society faces today is that sexuality and procreation are mixed together. The two must be separated. Sexuality is just a game of exploration. Even children have some exploration of sexuality. It's completely normal to explore sexuality. On the other hand, procreation is completely different. By saying that you are a manifestation of your consciousness, it means that procreation is an agreement between the soul of the woman and the soul of the being to come. The being can manifest without the need for a man, so procreation doesn't require sexuality. Procreation is just a manifestation. Conscious women are required to allow the manifestation of another being. The entanglement of a man in the middle is not necessary for procreation. DNA is just a fairy tale. We need to evolve in this aspect and end the belief of what we've been told has to be. So procreation is just an agreement between a woman and a being. There are tribes in Africa that follow these principles. When a woman feels the need to give birth, she goes under a tree. Under the tree, the woman waits for the call of the being who wants to be born in her womb. The being who wants to be born teaches the mother a song. Afterward, the mother chooses the man with whom she will have the unborn child. Then the couple has a song for the unborn child. That song also serves as a way for the baby to begin developing an ego. The song is sung to remind the child of where it came from and to purify the ego. That is their culture. We are a manifestation of our consciousness. We are not a creation of mom and dad. When you are fully conscious, you are truly a creator. You may be capable of creating something you never imagined you could create. You have to allow that first. We have enormous potential, but much of it is corrupted through ignorance, because you are programmed. In this way, you don't know all the potential you have.